This summer, I had the amazing opportunity to visit Costa Rica with EF Tours. This is my first time visiting Costa Rica, and I went as a part of Girl Scouts. The activities I got to do there really helped me understand and love the country of Costa Rica. I got to see its beautiful mountains and forests, as well as learn many new things about the culture there. I already knew that Costa Rica is famous for its coffee, and I saw that in the itinerary before I left that we were going to go on a coffee tour. However, I was also curious about cocoa in Costa Rica. I had heard a lot about increasing cocoa prices and wondered why are they increasing and if the high prices will last. Luckily, our tour guide, Walter, was able to book an optional chocolate tour for anyone who wanted to go. Of course, I jumped at the opportunity. I was able to learn a lot from just this tour alone. During the tour, our tour guide taught us how to make chocolate from scratch. First, you take the cacao pod and cut it open. Then you would take the beans inside of it and put them in a bucket for fermentation. After that, you would put the fermented beans outside to dry in the sun. Then the beans would be ready for roasting. The roasted beans would then be crushed and the process of winnowing was ready to begin. Normally, you would drop the crushed beans from the air in front of strong winds. The wind would then blow the shells of the beans away as they are lighter than the actual bean. However, since we didn't have much time, we created our own wind to get rid of the shells. The last step that we learned about in the tour was the grinding of the beans. The beans go into a grinder and they come out looking like a grainy chocolate pulp. Afterwards, we got to add our own ingredients to the chocolate that came out of the grinder, such as cinnamon, sugar, and coconut pieces. I thought this was great because I got to experience and see firsthand exactly how this chocolate was made. At the end of the tour, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to interview our tour guide. I asked her 4 questions which helped me further understand the answer to my overarching question.
So, have you experienced any extreme weather events that impacted the farming activity?
Yeah, all the time because when it's raining a lot, our crops can be just hard.
Yeah.
And then when it's not raining and the soil is so dry, that can be something that we cannot control, right? So that's why we have, for example, some irrigation system to avoid that. But it happens that can be just something like weather can, yeah.
Has climate change ever affected the growth of crops here?
Yeah, it happens that, for example, if it's not raining, the crops doesn't grow that much, and when it rains a lot, they can grow bigger than the one that we need. So it happens that, for example, with kale, that if we have a big leaf, that's rentable for us. But when we have, for example, a cacao tree that we needed shorter, and the rain made it just grow so tall, that is something that is saying we cannot control, and it change how we make stuff.
There were many things that I learned from just the first 2 questions of this interview alone. For starters, many cocoa farmers must use irrigation systems to try and avoid weather damage to their crops. This is one reason cocoa prices are increasing. The more it costs to grow the cocoa, the higher the prices. Also, like our tour guide said, poor weather conditions is something the farm cannot control. I know this is true because during my stay in Costa Rica, it rained almost every day. One day, it even rained 25 inches. So the quality of the cocoa beans can easily be affected. Some farms might have more crops than others, causing them to need to pay more for either higher quality beans or higher quality systems to avoid damage. All of these factors are reasons for the rising of cocoa prices. I also learned that climate change plays a huge role in the prices of cocoa. Climate change can cause plants to grow more or less than they need to. This can put farms behind on schedule as they would not be able to sell their products on time. It would cost more money for the farms to produce another set of crops, which means that the people will end up paying more as well.
Is cocoa used for products other than chocolate, like cosmetics?
Yeah, as maybe you heard at the tour, the shells can be used for a tea that help us to have a lot of vitamins. It has vitamin E and theobromine that works really good for the skin. And there is a perfume that has some smell of chocolate, some creams that you can use also for that. And as I said, the cosmetic industry that makes soaps, such as exfoliants and cocoa butter that works a lot for dry lips, for the elbows, for curing wounds. And
lastly, how have rising cocoa prices affected income?
The prices,
Yeah, like the cocoa, like the prices is rising. Has it affected?
it is rising. It is rising, and it affects us. And in the way that, for example, for just one store, we have to spend a lot of money sometimes, and that's why we have all those trees that belongs to us to make our own chocolate. But actually, it is really expensive right now.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The last two questions of my interview gave me more information as to why cocoa prices may be rising. Our tour guide said that cocoa bean shells can be used for tea, which gives us vitamin E. She also said that there are creams and perfumes that contain chocolate. This tells me that cocoa is needed for other products as well, adding to the overall demand and price of it. This information was interesting to me because I had no idea before that cocoa shells were used to give people more vitamins, and I also didn't realize how many products actually have chocolate in them. The last question I asked helped me gain an idea as to how cocoa prices are affecting the chocolate farms. Due to cocoa becoming more expensive, the farm is making more money. However, sometimes they spend extra money on chocolate tours for tourists. Our tour guide also said that the farm has its own trees to grow cocoa because buying it from somewhere else would cost them much more. So, depending on the farm and whether or not they grow their own cocoa or buy it from somewhere else, the rising prices have different effects. Afterwards, towards the end of my trip, I went to a coffee tour and learned about why coffee prices were increasing as well. Coffee prices are very similar to cocoa prices for many reasons. One is that both cocoa beans and coffee are sensitive to weather conditions. The poorer the weather, the worse the plant will turn out. Overall, due to my experience in Costa Rica and the opportunity I got to go on these different tours, I learned and came to the conclusion that long-term prices of cocoa will rise, but short-term prices will fluctuate. Over time, factors that affect the prices of cocoa will stay around the same, but over shorter periods of time, it is unpredictable whether prices will rise. I concluded that when farms make more money, their workers want to be paid more, and they are. However, if cocoa prices come down, farm owners still have to pay their workers more money and therefore would make less selling cocoa. Cocoa prices are rising because of its great demand not only in chocolate but in other products such as cosmetics, creams, and perfumes. Long term, the high prices will last, but short term, you never know what could happen. That's why workers are hesitant to pay their employees more when the prices go up. They never know when it could go down. In summary, I learned that managing a cocoa plantation is a complex business where they face long-term challenges due to climate change and inflation, but also need to address short-term fluctuations in labor costs and market prices.